I mean, how many transactions do you think you were able to handle, like on your own?
Well, I mean, I personally sold close to 500 transactions. So but again, most of them, I had assistance, I had help. So like my second year that's when I kind of realized that I needed somebody who can handle like the back office stuff.
Yeah.
I remember sitting, I mean, I was sitting like in the evenings, I think it was like 8 o'clock in the evening. Like I was sitting on a couch and I was just like with my laptop, on my knees and legs. And I was just like sitting there and just like being so stressed.
How many transactions were you doing that?
I don't know. I think I was doing like 4 or 5 transactions. I think that month maybe was probably like 4 or 5 transactions and everything like that. But then it's much more than 4 or 5 transactions. Then you also have listings. Yeah. So I have like 7, 8 listings at any given time, right? And then you have these transactions, right? And then you have the leads as well, right? So I'm sitting at 9 and I'm like pushing the paperwork, right? So I need my seller to initial, the contract, and I'm doing an offer or counter offer with the buyer's agent, right? And at the same time, I had like my kids are just hanging out next to me, and they're like, "Hey, Daddy," trying to get my attention and all of that stuff. My wife is trying to get my attention as well. My dogs are trying to get attention. And I'm like, shit, like I'm making good money. I think I was making like at that time $25,000-$30,000 a month. I was like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I sitting like at 8, 9 o'clock in the evening and doing this work? Like, and this is something that I don't even enjoy doing. It was not like one of my core competencies. I'm not one of those people that are like excited about the paperwork, dude. Like, that's not what I like to do.
Getting initials.
No. And I was like, all right, man, I need help. I need somebody who can help me, right?
Yeah.
And that's when I kind of like, I decided, I committed. So again, thought about it, right? I was thinking about it, made a decision, and then committed in finding somebody who can replace me on the admin side of things.
Got it.
So, and that's the biggest thing, is like making that decision and committing to it. And here's what happened. The first one that I hired was a part-time admin, but her definition was like 5 hours a week. That's her part-time.
So part-time.
Part-time, right. She was lacking the work ethic, let me put it this way.
Yeah.
Right. So she didn't work out. The second one that I hired, she was great, but again, she was just not the right fit. It wasn't because she didn't know what she was doing. I think that emotionally, she would get overwhelmed when we had like an overbearing client or overbearing agent, and I just needed somebody who's going to keep things, emotionally in check.
Yeah.
And then finally, the third one that I got was a referral, and she worked out. She worked out pretty well, and I think with her, we doubled our business our next year, right? But here's what I'm trying to allude to is the fact that there would be people that would give up. They hired their first assistant, their first admin, and that admin didn't work out. They said, you know what? Screw this. Yeah, I don't want to be wasting my time. I don't want to be hiring somebody and that person's not going to work out. Might as well just do it myself. And my situation happened twice. In that 4-month window, like twice I hired people that didn't work out. So I didn't give up.
Yeah.
I said, all right, there's got to be a person out there. You see?
Yeah.
And that has to do with everything. Again, just not giving up, right? Or we have this tendency of giving up too soon, quitting too soon, and then we have to restart again.
Yeah.
And that's not what we want to do, right? So for me, the key thing is like, man, I find someone that will replace me on the admin side. I did find someone, and I went from 35 transactions in year number 2 to like 70, I think 75 or 76 transactions year number 3.
Literally doubled it then.
Doubled it, and I think it did like close to like $600,000, $550 or $600,000 in income my third year with an assistant.
Yeah.
And for me, the light went off, like it was like, dude, like that's, if I can now do this with the agents as well,
Yeah.
you see, like, what if I have agents that are actually going out there and like showing homes, right?
Yeah.
Because it takes a lot of time to show homes.
Yeah.
I always enjoyed working with the sellers as well because, with listings, you can leverage them, right?
Yeah.
You can put the listing on a market. You have a sign outside. You get calls. You do open houses. You get leads. There's a good chance that the seller is also going to be the buyer. So there are like 2 transactions possibly, right? So I always preferred working with the sellers. So that's why, like, I think after year number 3, I was like, all right, it's time for me to start bringing in agents that can go out there and help out my buyers. Yeah.
So you hired an assistant, you doubled your transactions, you started getting help, you had agents. I mean, when they were helping you, were you doing like splits, or were they on any splits when they were on your team, or were you paying them per showing, or how did that work?
Yeah, I mean, initially I just hired showing assistants, and I was just paying them for each showing or for each door that they showed.
Do you recommend that for someone who's just
mine as well. I mean, it's probably the most profitable way of doing it. I mean, if you find somebody you can rely on and they're like, can go out there on a whim and show. I mean, that's what's really kind of like takes a lot of time, right?
Yeah.
If you think about it.
How many hours do you think per buyer on average that you spent with?
Man, it just depends where I'm taking that buyer. Like we're living in Metro Phoenix area. So, I mean, I can drive 45 minutes sometimes, just to show one house. And that's really the best use to show my time if you think about it, right? So like for me, again, like I said, I really wanted to focus always on the listings. Like I can get a listing, and pretty much I'm done, Whereas working with the buyers, it's a multi-step process. In other words, you have to be constantly showing and showing and showing and showing. And you could drive for 40 minutes or half an hour to show just one property or 2 properties. And they may not like those properties. So it's half an hour going there, half an hour showing homes, and then half an hour coming back. And if you're, let's say, hitting the traffic, that can be 45 minutes, right? So you spend like 2.5, 3 hours. But it's not just the time, it's also the energy.
Yeah.
See, I mean, that's another thing. Like that energy could have been probably used somewhere else.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why for me is like, man, I need help. Like I need like agents that can go out there and show on my behalf. Now, I will introduce them as my partners or as my associates, right? I will still do the initial meetings with the client, right? I'll get them pre-qualified and all of that.
So you'll just let them know that you have your associates going to be showing you around.
It's a warm handoff. It's usually I'll do a discovery meeting, right? And I'll introduce them to Mary, and Mary's going to go out there and show you homes, right? And she's been in business for 10 years or 8 years, whatever it is. So she knows how to do it, and I would just pay Mary $25 per door. Sometimes depends, $25 an hour. Depends. Like at the end of the day though, but it just would save me 2, 3, 4 hours a day. Now with those 2 or 3 hours, I would not just sit there by the pool and drink a bunch of beers. I would prospect, man. I would follow up. I would prospect. I would follow up. I get more appointments. I get more meetings set up, right? That's what I would do. Like when you're replacing yourself, you're trying to replace yourself, like it doesn't mean that you now can goof off for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. It just means that you focus more on the things that will pay you more money.
Yeah.
And for me, like I knew what would pay me more money. And that's lead gen, right? Lead conversion, marketing. Those are the things. So for me, that's what I wanted to focus on. The rest of the stuff like admin work, showing homes, that can be done by someone else.
Got it. So, okay. So after that, I mean, that's when you eventually obviously opened up your brokerage. So, I mean, do you think that the admin was kind of like the start of you realizing and kind of leading to that journey of you ending up opening up your own brokerage just through like learning how to work with people, more people to leverage your time and get more?
Well, I mean, I think ultimately what I wanted to do is, like I mentioned to you, dude, like real estate for me was always like a vehicle to get me to the next phase of my professional life, you know, my financial well-being, and ultimately have a business, right? So like when you work for someone, you have a job, right? When, let's say, you're a real estate agent, for the most part, it's not really a business. You own a job. Because if you're not going out there and you're not prospecting and you're not meeting with clients, you know, you're not showing homes, like, you know, you're not getting paid, right? So you own a job, right? But the next phase is like, okay, like actually like owning a business. So for me, like it started with a team. But again, team, I was still in production, you know, I was still doing probably about 30, 40, 50% of the production. And eventually, kind of grew out of the team model just because the fact that I felt like if I'm going to be like growing, if I'm going to be bringing more agents and if I'm going to be spending time in developing those agents, if I also going to give them the opportunities for growth as well for the agents as well as staff, you know, like the next.
Because you already had staff as a team.
Yeah. I had a staff. I mean, I had a transaction coordinator. I had a listing coordinator, right? You know, we had agents at one point. We had 15 agents on a team, 15 or 17 agents on a team. So it's kind of like, it was like a mini brokerage, right?
Yeah.
But like, the issues that I was experiencing was the fact that these team members would leave me, right? Because they outgrew the team. Like they wanted to start their own teams, you know, they wanted to build their own brand, you know, and they just don't want to pay 2 commission splits. They don't want to pay a commission split to me and then also to the brokerage, right? And then, like I said, man, I was thinking like, if I'm gonna do this right long term, what's my play? Do I continue doing this as a team, right? Or do I build a brokerage or eventually actually have the opportunity to like exit out or sell?
Yeah.
You know, so that's really kind of what prompted me to start my own brokerage. Is like, man, like if I'm going to build this out, you know, whether it's 10, 15, 20 years down the road, you know, if I have a chance, I'll be able to sell it, you know? And that's the main reason.
Do you want to keep going?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've done you've done an amazing job. I mean, at your brokerage with like hiring the right people too. I mean, so how do you find the right people? You know, like what do you, or do you look for something in particular when you're hiring people? Because I feel like you've really been able to scale your brokerage through, you know, building an incredible team that's able to pretty much manage everything.
Dude, I mean, it's a process, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a process. Like I say this, like one of the hardest things to, like in growing any business is like finding people, the right people.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there are people that you can find, but I don't think, you know, they would actually add that much value, unfortunately. I think that's the most difficult part as a business owner. Like, I know right now how to grow the business. It's through people, it's through systems, right? It's through capital. Those are the 3 key ingredients. Yeah. Everything starts with people, right? So you find the right people, you know, most likely your business is gonna like continue to grow. Yeah. You get the wrong people, your business is gonna like suffer, right? And then, you know, you're just not gonna make the same type of strides, you know, and it's gonna be a very painful ordeal. Yeah. And I've been there so many times. I hired wrong people. I did not lead the right way. Like, that's another thing as a business owner. You have to be constantly leveling up as a leader, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't train correctly. I didn't set the expectations. I did not manage those expectations. But there's so many things
Yeah.
that I've done that were just wrong. But I also hired the wrong people. You know, when you hire those wrong people, I mean, it's going to cost you. You know, and you think it's only going to cost you, let's say, you know, the salary, but it's much more than that. It's time.
Time. A lot of time.
Right. It's a lot of time. It's energy that is
Yeah.
spent or wasted on these people. Right. But again, there's just no other way around it. You know, again, these are all, I call them learning opportunities or learning lessons.
Yeah.
It's like, remember I mentioned to you about my first assistant in real estate, like, and my second assistant in real estate. Both of them were not successful hires. They were bad hires. But my third one helped me to go from 35 transactions to 75 transactions.
Yeah. That's
So
insane.
if I would give up on the first two and say, you know what, this shit doesn't work, like
Yeah.
I'm just going to do everything myself. And there are a lot of like entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners, like they try to do everything themselves for some reason. I mean, we were all like pre-wired just to kind of try to fix things ourselves or do things ourselves. But honestly, like we're not good at everything.
Yeah.
We're not good. So what we got to really focus on are the things that really we're good at, our core strengths, right? And then just try to delegate everything else. And that's how you're going to be able to grow.
Yeah. What would you say your strengths are?
I think, you know, really kind of casting a big vision, leading, and I think just not giving up. Like, dude, like I
I don't think I've ever seen you say,
dude,
we'll just put this aside.
no. So no, there are times where you have to like table it. You have to like, but like what I mean by that is like, as a business owner, I've been a business owner for 20 years now.
Yeah.
Right? I've seen so much and I experienced so many things and I've been hit in the teeth so many times. Like nothing really surprises me. So like for some people that just start and they get that big like problem in front of them or they get this situation and they just get flustered. Like for me, I was like, all right, whatever. We'll figure it out. So I think another thing is just figuring it out.
Yeah.
Right? Because things are going to happen. Problems are going to happen. They never go away. They're going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. There's always going to be something. Just having that knack for like first and foremost, kind of being almost kind of like immune to it. Like don't going crazy or overboard with your emotional reactions. But then also having the ability to figure it out.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's really ultimately what we as business owners kind of like are good at is figuring out these problems.
We have no choice.
We have no choice. We have no
Yeah.
choice. We got to figure them out.
Yeah.
Right. So what I learned back in the days, back in 2007, 8, 9 with my limo business, even for example, when I, went through a real estate, situations, in an early career and then, started a team. The first couple of years was tough, and then when I started even the brokerage, they're like, the first 5-6 months, it was terrible. It was during COVID.
Yeah.
Agents were leaving. Agents were not joining because they didn't have a name recognition, none of that stuff, but you just figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hiring 300 agents later.
Well, yeah, I mean, hiring 300 agents, right? But you also lose agents, right? So
Yeah.
it's not like 300 agents and they're all going to stick around. And that's very important thing to remember. Also, if you're in a brokerage world, real estate brokerage world, it's like, dude, like if you're going to hire like 10 agents, don't stop.
Yeah.
Continue hiring more agents because agents are going to leave you. And the same thing, by the way, when it comes to your staff,
Yeah.
right? People are going to leave you, right? There's that saying, if you have one, that means you have none,
You have none.
right? If you have only one client, there's a good chance that you may possibly lose that client,
Yeah.
right? If you have one agent, there's a chance that you're going to lose that agent. If you have just one admin, there's a chance that you're going to lose that admin, right? So you always want to have multiples. And that has to do with the team, that has to do with the brokerage, that has to do with any positions in your company. Now, you're not going to start there right away, but you have to be constantly mindful of that and continue to grow and expand, knowing that eventually people are going to leave you. It's going to happen. It's not if, it's when.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, it's true. And it's just, you've got the amount of people. I mean, I've seen it firsthand. You've hired a lot of people and didn't work out, and then you find the right person, and that definitely takes time with all that. So,
well, yeah, I mean, you hire the wrong people. The key thing to remember is if you hire the wrong people, right, admit that you hired the wrong person, right, and get rid of that individual.
yeah.
Don't let that person to linger around.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's how it's supposed to be done. People say, you know what? Hire slow, fire fast.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think you hire fast, right? And you also fire fast. Right? Because hiring slow, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What are you going to just kind
taking
of
longer to
wait for a perfect candidate to appear? You got to take chances.
Yeah. That's true.
You got to take risks. And how do you know that actually that person that you hire is going to be a perfect candidate for you?
Yeah.
I mean, there are patterns, obviously. You got to do your due
know.
diligence, and it takes time, right? And it takes the experience.
Yeah.
But look, I hired people thinking they're going to be ideal candidates and they're going to crush it. And they were like the biggest disappointments.
Yeah.
Same thing with the agents. We had agents that we felt like are going to like be top producing agents. And they were like duds.
Yeah.
Nothing came out of it. Right? Yeah. So I think like hire fast. If you have a need, hire fast. Right? But again, if that person is not working out, like you got to let them go. Yeah. And I may be fucking cold-hearted. I don't know. But you know what? Dude, like my time is important. My energy is important. So that's something that's taken to the consideration as well.
Got it.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the key strengths you look for in the people you hire?
Well, first and foremost, I mean, they got to be dependable. They got to be reliable. They got to be able to learn and implement and deploy things that they've learned. They want to have a vision of growth, because every company that I started from scratch. So we're growing together.
Yeah.
Right? So like with modern day brokerage, for example, our company.
Yeah.
Right, dude? Like we have employees in that company that want to grow.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They're also want to learn, and they implement the things that we teach them.
Yeah.
And I think this is very important, and they're also very, very dependable. Mm-hmm. They show up, they do the work, right? They take care of our clients. Like all of those things are very important.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? And also, it just also depends on the position that you're going to be hiring too. Like, what level? Like, for example, if I'm hiring somebody who's a senior, a director, I want to have the experience. I want to see the experience. If I'm going to be hiring a director position for the company, man, you got to have some experience to bring to the table. Yeah. Because I'm not going to be training you or teaching you to do something that you're supposed to be teaching others to do.
Yeah, that's true. What are the red flags you notice when hiring, or for people you already have hired?
Well, I mean, there are a couple that come to mind, maybe more than a couple, right? So like showing up on time and not showing up on time is a freaking red flag.
Okay.
Right? Showing up kind of disheveled, like not really ready for an interview is another red flag. Yeah. Showing up to the meeting unprepared, not having like a notepad, right? Or something to write with, or let's say they have a laptop, that's another red flag. Not really asking questions about the company. Like there's going to be a time when you have to like ask questions about the company and you don't get any questions, right? what's the other one? I would say probably just kind of like talking bad about their current employer or their previous employer, right? Their previous manager or supervisor that they work with. Too much me, not enough like we team wise.
Yeah.
And not really kind of asking like what's the goal of the company? What's the vision of the company? Where do you want to be 5 years down the road? Like, where do you see me, right, 5 years from now? Like, what are your expectations of me? Like, those are the questions I would actually ask if I'm interviewing for a position.
Yeah.
But here's another thing. I think it's just the vibe, right? Like, so if I'm sitting with someone and there's just something there, there's some sort of like a negative energy, right? Like I
tension.
put myself in a position, let's say, for example, if it's like a director of operations, right? I'm interviewing director of operations. And that person is going to be managing a staff of 3, right? And I'm putting myself in the same position as that staff, right? And I'm like, what kind of vibes am I going to be getting from this person if that person is going to be overseeing me, right? If it's a negative energy, if it's like rigid attitude, right? If it's like my way or freaking highway, like I just don't think that's going to be a right fit for us.
Yeah.
Right. But those are the things that come to mind, but there's so many other things, right? The way they behave, sometimes even the way they sit. Like I had interviews where they were just sitting just like this, like so casual and everything like that. And I was like, oh, that's cool, but we're not sitting in a bar, right? We're not sitting in a cigar lounge or something like that. I mean, this is an interview, right?
Yeah. Definitely.
But just those type of things that kind of come to mind.
Okay. So what are some of your best hires?
I think the best hires are the ones that, dude, that's a loaded question. Like, for example, let's say, for example, we take you, right? Right. You're considered to be one of my best hires. But initially when we met, you're that young pup, right? You're like 22, 23 years old, just graduated from GCU.
Yeah.
Right. You're pitching me marketing services, like social media services, right? So it was you and I think your ex-partner, what's his name?
Kyle. Yep.
Kyle, yeah. So you guys came in, I think you were like all dressed up and everything like that. I think you were wearing like a shirt and a tie.
Yep.
And you were very pleasant. You were asking questions, and you offered what you offered. And to be honest with you, the reason I hired you in the first place, not because of your knowledge, because I was like, you know what? I can see him working for me one day.
Yeah, I remember you used to kind of be like, what are your guys' thoughts on working in the office a few times a week? And I was like, oh,
right.
he's starting to...
Right, so I was like, the fact that you guys showed up and you tried to pitch me and you're like 22, 23 years old, right? And you were always nervous about it, but you tried to pitch me, right?
Yeah.
I was like, man, I respect that.
Yeah.
I respect that. So for me, I mean, that was a really positive impression. Yeah. I think with Melissa, right? Let's take Melissa. And Melissa right now is our director of operations. Like, dude, she joined us as a real estate agent. But you know what impressed me about Melissa? When I met with her, she came in like she was applying for like a general manager position. I mean, she was all dressed up. She had the notebook. She had a binder of resumes. I still have her resume. Actually, it was so different and so unique, right? She had like 2 or 3 references already presented and provided. And again, she was like interviewing for a real estate agent position, which is a 1099.
Yeah,
like
you don't see that often.
Most of the real estate agents show up in the shorts and t-shirts and everything like that, and they're like whatever, right?
Yeah.
But that's what really impressed her first. Like, and then when I hired her as a real estate agent, she would show up on time every single day. She would be in the office. She was very friendly, lots of energy, right? All of those things are important to me. And when the opportunity came for me to look for an admin, I was like, man, what about Melissa? Yeah. And again, Melissa, she was a manager for Ulta, a general manager for Ulta for about 12 years. She was the youngest there, right? And she actually took that position. Why? Because she enjoyed being a manager or actually spending more time with agents and supporting agents versus going out there and selling homes.
Yeah.
So she had that pattern, like her background, her experience, but also the way she was presenting herself after she was hired as an agent.
Yeah, I mean, she's awesome. All the agents see it.
Well, I mean,
and that's pretty neat because, you know, a lot of people talk about, you know, hiring within your network and stuff, and sometimes like a lot of these business, especially the brokerage owners, they don't know it, but they might have their next best hire already in their brokerage or on their team and stuff.
oh yeah, absolutely. Like you always got to be like thinking and looking 2 or 3 steps ahead. Like in your situation, I was looking 2 to 3 steps ahead, right? So like, okay, first of all, let me give him an opportunity to work with me, right? Which you did, and then I think your partner, your ex-partner, decided to do something else, right?
Yeah.
And
I had to repitch.
and I think you actually went and got another job or something like that.
Yeah.
But you didn't like that job. It was finances or insurance or something like that.
Yeah, it was
something along those lines, right?
finance.
And then I think you and I spoke. I was like, hey, how about you coming, you know, on board as our marketing person, right? And you're like, yeah, let's do it. Let's make it happen. Right. But even then, like I remember the first 6 or 7 months, I think you were going through the motions. Like you would show up late, right?
I didn't even know. Like I was like, where do I even start with this stuff?
Yeah. But finally, you were able to get this, right?
Yeah.
You know, and now we partner. So it takes time sometimes, you know, and
Perfect example.
it takes times. Yeah, it takes time. But you know, like look, I mean, you know, I can see if the person actually like wants to do this, wants to learn and trying to get better and improve.
Yeah.
Versus like just half-assing it.
Yeah.
If I see that person is half-assing it, there's no mercy for that person.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing. Like I will fire your ass in a second. Yeah. Like sorry, there's just no mercy there. Yeah. If you're actually trying to get better, but you're still making mistakes, but you're trying to get better, right? I'll be patient with you. I will give you all the tools. I'll give you all the resources for you to get better. Because we all have to start somewhere. Like think about it, Tristan. Like I had to start somewhere as well. I remember my first freaking corporate job. I was like, how does this thing work? It was like a headset. I was like, how does this thing work?
Yeah.
Like, listen, like I didn't know.
Yeah.
You know, didn't know. I learned, right? Or the first script. It was forever for me to learn that script, right?
Yeah.
I learned, right? So it's not like you're going to be like going gangbusters from the first time or the first month. Like it's going to take some time.